Hey, welcome to a very special edition of Ultra Chen TV. Usually this is on Mondays and Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Pacific time, but it's none of those things right now.
Exactly, because there's a special event coming up this weekend, of course, MLG Anaheim occurring there, and this is another MLG event where they have a lot of the fighting games in there.
Yeah, there are actually 3 fighting games, if you're not familiar with them. They are Mortal Kombat 9, Soul Calibur 5, and King of Fighters 13. They were in there last time as well,
That's
but
right.
We didn't think to do a show in advance, and we did see that a lot of people who were watching maybe didn't understand those games well enough. And if you don't understand a game, you're not going to be interested in a game, and you're not going to find it very exciting at all. So we wanted to kind of help people understand these games a little bit better, so that when you're watching, you can become a little bit more invested in what's going on and think that it's a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, not even just talk about what's going on in the game, but outside the game too.
Oh, yeah.
We want to highlight a lot of the players, maybe some of the history in the community and such. So that it helps give a little more investment in there if you if you want to root for like West Coast or Europe or something like that.
Right.
So,
yeah, and that's going to come up pretty frequently when we're talking about this. Each of these different games has different regional rivalries.
Yeah.
Which is going to be pretty cool, actually. In some cases, it's international, so that'll be really cool to see. If you're not really familiar with fighting games at all, I saw some posts on some of the places where we were advertising this, like on Reddit and Team Liquid, where people weren't exactly sure that fighting games had strategy and such.
Isn't it just mashing buttons?
Like doing this? It's not really like that at all, actually. These are just strategy games. They're just kind of cloaked in this 1v1 usually format that is a stand-up looking thing, and obviously the very basics. You have 2 characters that you're controlling, and they have special moves and normal moves, and they can be, if it's a 2D game like Mortal Kombat or King of Fighters, they can be jumping around and moving forward and back, and in Soul Calibur it's an 8-way game. You can do all sorts of different things as you're moving around in this 3D plane.
And your whole goal is just to drain the life bar of your opponent.
Yeah.
Almost every one of these games, most fighting games are going to be either like 2 out of 3 rounds or 3 out of 5 rounds.
Yeah.
In fact, actually, Mortal Kombat's the only true 2 out of 3 that we're going to be talking about today.
Right. Mortal Kombat is 2 out of 3, Soul Calibur 3 out of 5, and then in King of Fighters it's a team-based game.
Kind of 3 out of 5.
Yeah, sort of.
It's 3 out of 5 essentially as well, but there's a little bit more to it, and we'll explain that when we get to it. So.
Exactly. So basically, in fighting games, you're looking to control your opponent's space and options with whatever it is that your character can do. You're using long-range moves. You're using in some cases short-range moves. That control can come in the form of a fireball or something like that, something that controls space horizontally.
A good way, really, just like a good analogy is, a lot of times people, I know a lot of fighting game players hate this analogy, but a lot of people say that fighting games are like fast-paced chess.
Yeah,
and
right.
You can have these little quick, the light attacks are almost like the pawns. They're just they move very short distance, but they control this little space around them. And then you have stuff like bishops, which can attack all the way across the board, so they control this, space. It's almost like a fireball that way, a projectile, as it were, in a fighting game. And so you use all of these different moves instead of controlling the squares on a board. You're controlling the spaces on the screen.
But each character has a specific place that it wants to be on screen. Not just in general, but in different matchups you want to be in different places. And so the way that you use your tools is a little bit different because of that, and the uses that your tools get put to, the reasons to use them are a little bit different too, depending on the matchups and definitely depending on the games.
Right. If you imagine, if you're continuing with the chess analogy, if you could choose between characters, and one character would have 6 bishops and no rooks, and then one team is all knights. If it's all knights, then you can attack from long range, and such like that. So that's kind of how to picture all the different characters in a fighting game.
Yeah, and obviously there's also the concept of mix-ups, which is where you put your opponent into some situation that's bad for them, and then you get to make them guess in a way that they don't want to guess. And if they guess wrong, then they get blown up. But obviously it's not just a raw guess. You have all sorts of things that are informing what's happening and which choices you're making.
And a lot of
reads
it,
on your opponent.
Right. Since most of it is so real-time reactive. It's in the span of a second. As commentators, when we usually commentate fighting games, it's actually really hard to do it sometimes, because within 1 second there could be like 5 little mini mind games that happen right there. And, you know, once you watch fighting games enough, you can understand that happened,
Yeah.
but most of the time, you know, it's hard to tell normally if you haven't been watching fighting games a lot.
Yeah, man, it gets rough on us sometimes. Like, sometimes we want to be talking about something that just happened, or just some general concept, and then something cool happens, and we have to just totally cut that idea off and get back to whatever it is actually occurring at the time.
Yep.
Yeah. Here, so why don't you go over to the game footage? We're going to be starting with Mortal Kombat 9. And then we'll go to Soul Calibur 5, and then finally to King of Fighters 13. I want to just address real quickly. People were wondering why it was only these 3 games and not things like Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom or Tekken or whatever your game is. Just that because these are the publishers that gave the rights to MLG to do this.
Right.
Basically, and you know they each have scenes of differing sizes and of differing international appeal, and, and you know they have each in their own way. Like their communities have been pretty strong about supporting their games. So. Anyway, like I said, we're going to start with Mortal Kombat 9, and this is a game that is, you know, I'm sure everybody recognizes what Mortal Kombat is. It's not something that's unknown, but
I can't imagine anybody having not ever played Mortal Kombat at some point in their life, you know.
Yo, is sound coming out of your computer over there?
Is it? There we go.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Yep, sorry, we're getting a little bit of an echo there.
Yeah, just didn't want to screw it up for anybody.
Okay.
But it's different now. It's not like previous Mortal Kombats. For a long time, frankly, Mortal Kombat was basically unplayable in competitive tournaments. It's not since like the mid-90s that it's like really been good for that. So, this is a big return for the Mortal Kombat community. About a year and a half ago, I guess it came out, and it is a game of that's very different than some of the other games. It has some very different concepts.
Like the way that, you know, most, like if you talk about Street Fighter, it's very controlled. You can see the characters on the screen, and you know that most characters. Hang on, let me turn you into a human here.
Cool. There you go.
So for the most part here, is it connected? It should be.
Are we plugged in over here?
Yeah, you're plugged in. You know what I did? I did not hit the A button.
Oh, the A, yeah.
Sorry.
Good job, dude.
Sorry. There you go. Now
hey, all right.
Okay. So, I mean, the thing about it is, in most fighting games, it's pretty straightforward. Like, even in Soul Calibur and King of Fighters, when you have your characters here, you can just kind of hit the space in front of you by punching, by attacking. You'll have special moves, you know, projectile kind of things like this. But the thing that makes Mortal Kombat very unique is that there's a lot of dimension warping kind of stuff going on. So, for example, I can teleport through the back of the screen. You know, a lot of characters can drop through the floor, can rise through the floor and stuff. So, you know, normally from this kind of game here, like most fighting games, from this distance, you know, you would be playing a ranged game, but, you know, a lot of characters can just get right in your face right away. And so this is kind of one of the things that you're going to be very aware of when you play Mortal Kombat and when you watch Mortal Kombat.
Right. Anyway, so there are a couple things that you really need to know about how this game works. So, one is that it has a block button. There you go.
Yep.
In general, 2D games, by which I just mean that there's not this in and out dimension, it's only up and down and left and right, you just hold back to block.
Yes.
It's normally how it goes. So that's a big difference in this game. And that means that things like, you know, cross-ups, which are normally a big deal when it comes to fighting games, to 2D fighting games. A cross-up is just something where, you know, okay, if I'm hitting from the front, let me just do a attack. Obviously, you're just going to block it backwards. But if I jump to the other side and hit you like that, in a lot of other games, you'd have to switch which direction you're blocking.
Right. I mean,
just to be able to block. But in this one, you're just holding the block button, so it's not there.
Yeah, for a lot of players who may not be familiar with fighting games at all, fighting games really come down to opening up defense.
Yeah.
So if your opponent is just defending all the time, you want to open them up. And so a lot of games, because holding back is blocking, you can usually get to the other side of them and get them to block the wrong direction.
Right.
And then
to cross them up.
Right.
Basically, right? So just you're on the other side.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, 2 of the games that we're talking about today both have block buttons.
That's true.
That can't happen. But when we get to King of Fighters, you'll actually see a lot of like tricks that you can do.
It's huge in that game.
Yeah, and when you watch high level play, you'll see people, you know, jump at them at distances where it's really hard to tell what side it's going to hit on and stuff like that.
Right.
But in Mortal Kombat, that's not the situation because I have a very convenient block button.
Exactly. So there's also this concept that generally happens in fighting games where when you block, you don't take damage unless it's a particular kind of move that the opponent touches you with.
A special move.
A special move.
To call it. Yeah.
That just means a move that requires some command. Right.
So, for example, that teleport move that I was doing with Scorpion, this spear move.
Right. If you notice up at the top, look at Sub-Zero's life. Do it again. You see it went down by a little bit.
Yeah.
That's common in 2D fighting games. That pretty much always happens. But big difference for Mortal Kombat is that when you hit the opponent with a normal attack, which is to say just a button, I'm just going to press a button, that usually does not deal chip damage. That is to say, just damage that, little bit of damage at a time because you're blocking a special move.
Right.
It's just basically a mechanic to make it so that you can't always sit still.
Yeah. Again, fighting games is all about breaking defense.
Right.
And in Mortal Kombat, one of the ways they've aided you in breaking defense is that you can never block safely.
Right.
Like, as long as you're blocking moves, you're going to take damage. And, even if your life drains all the way to an empty bar, if you block a normal move, even though you're blocking, you're still going to die anyway.
Right, so here, hit me now. I'm going to be blocking. Just hit me with some normals. Look at my life. I mean, it's still going down. So if that's really, really important in this game. It comes up in some really significant ways.
Right.
That you basically can't not take damage unless you're just not in the position in the first place. So in this game, it's super important that you, if you want to be one of these characters like Johnny Cage, for example, that wants to be up in your face, pressing a lot of buttons, if you're an opponent, basically your goal is to never be in that situation. So it's not the kind of thing where it's like, well, okay, he did this thing to me, now what do I do? The better question is, how do I not get put in that situation at all in the first place?
Right, right. I mean, we talked about how, you could potentially put people into guessing games and such like that, but, you hinted at the fact that most of the time it's not really guessing, right? You kind of force your opponent into positions, and so, I mean, even just like, in a game of StarCraft, for example, a lot of times if you lose, a lot of times it's what you did at the beginning. You didn't set yourself up right, you weren't ready for what the opponent was going to do, and by the time it gets to the end, there's really not much left you can do, right? I mean, they're just going to overwhelm you. In the fighting games, it's more condensed into, like, one particular moment. So they can, for example, if Sub-Zero throws a fireball, like you can throw an ice fireball here.
I don't remember how.
There you go.
No, I haven't done this in so long.
Low punch.
No, it's not. Here, why don't you just throw your spear?
Okay. Well, some characters, if they throw a projectile like that, they can force the opponent to jump, and once they jump, you can counter them out of the air with something like that. So, you're kind of forcing the characters to do stuff that they don't want to do. However, the tricky part is you're not letting them know you want them to. You're not letting them know they shouldn't do that. If you're playing the game right, you're gonna let them think they're doing the right thing, and then all of a sudden you're just gonna beat them down. So.
Right. So in any case, this concept of the block button and always chip damage, those are both really, really big things in this game. Another one of the biggest things to know about this game is the meter. Yeah. And just in general, if you're not aware of what a meter means, you see this thing down in the bottom of the screen here, where there's the three bars,
X.
the big old flashing X, the bar that leads up to it. That's your super meter, and your super meter allows you to do a bunch of different things. It grows as you're attacking. It grows in different ways in just about every fighting game.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have to really pay attention to what your meter is like in this game because it's huge. In this game, it can be everything.
Yeah, and in fact, in many fighting games, paying attention to that super meter is more important than paying attention to the life meter. One of the mistakes that a lot of people might make is that they'll see like the life differential we have right now and be like, well, obviously Sub-Zero's losing. But if I had an empty bar and he has a full bar, you know that he can do so much more with that. So technically, he might be behind in life, but in terms of utility and what he can do. Of options, exactly.
Right. Yeah, that's what the game is about.
Yeah, so games even like Super Street Fighter 4, I think the super meter is more important than the life meter in that
It can
game.
be.
Yeah.
But certainly in this game it is. It's gigantic. And let's go into what it can do exactly. So one stock, as you can see, there are 3 levels. One stock allows you to do a special, an enhanced version of whatever your special move is. It doesn't apply to normal moves like we were saying, like this kind of stuff. It applies to, you know, special moves like this that are command. You have to do just separate commands on the joystick and then some combination of the buttons to make happen.
Try the fireball.
Dude, I'm telling you, I haven't played. I was never a Sub-Zero player.
Low punch, fireball, low punch, isn't it? That's high punch there, right? So try. Try fireball, high punch then.
It's not it, dude. I honestly don't remember.
Let me see this.
I was never a Sub-Zero player in this game.
Oh, there it is. It's fireball and low kick.
Oh, okay.
A.
And A.
You know what? I don't think the buttons are configured properly.
Yeah, I don't think they are either.
Well, watch what happens right here. I'm gonna throw a spear and you're gonna throw a projectile at the same time. See, I lost in this situation, right?
Yeah, but do it again. Right. So that can come into play in this game. If you get hit out of the startup of something, that is to say the beginning animation of it before the move is actually hitting somebody or before it can hit, then the other person will win.
Right.
And in this game, it's unusual because projectiles don't clash.
Right.
Usually in 2D fighting games, if two people throw a projectile, if two Ryus are throwing Hadokens at the same time, they'll clash and they'll disappear.
Right. In this game,
it doesn't happen. That means that the way that you keep your opponent out by using these projectile moves is a little bit different. That is to say, you maintain whatever space you want to do in a little bit of a different way.
Right. And one of the reasons why that I brought up this, this collision that we have. Yeah. So do it again. So throw the fireball. Alright. So you notice that every time I throw my spear, if I don't hit him before he hits me, I'm gonna get frozen and he just falls over like that. We were talking about once you get to a meter, you can do something called an enhanced version of your special move. So Scorpion can actually do an enhanced version of the spear. Right. If he does the enhanced version of the spear, it actually goes through. You see that it actually nullified. So I can use. So in other words, with that one chunk of bar, you see I've just lost a chunk of my bar right there. If I didn't have any super meter full at all, Sub-Zero can kind of throw those ice balls at me all day, the ice projectile. And, he really limits my ability to throw the spear at him because you see when we throw it at the same time, I come out worse for wear. But if I have that super meter full, now he has to respect that move. He has to respect the enhanced version. But because it costs a bar, I can't just throw it out willy-nilly all day. Right. I actually have to do what fighting game players like to call meter management, which is a huge concept. Learning how to control and use your meter for the right reasons, and in most games, even after you lose a round, you keep that meter for the next round too. Yeah. So it's even between. What happens here. Yeah. So it's even between rounds that you want to consider all this meter management. And
in this game, meter is even more important because if you have 2 bars, so the enhanced special costs 1 bar. 2 bars is something even better. Right. You can actually interrupt the opponent's combo.
So just so you guys, we apologize because we're trying to cater this to all levels of audiences. If you don't know what a combo is, basically it's a series of hits that once you start getting hit. Let me see if I can still do a combo. Oh, I remember what it is. Right, so that, for example, is once I hit him with that first move, there was nothing he can do. He's just going to get hit by the whole thing. Yeah. However, in this game, there is something you can do.
So hit me again.
All right.
Oh wait, hold on.
Ready?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can just hold it here.
Yeah.
Wait, this is block, right? Yeah.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
It is. Okay.
So what you can do is break out of a combo. Combos in this game can get pretty ridiculous. In fact, there are some setups that can literally kill entirely using combo damage and also the concept of a reset, which is to say a big damage combo that leads you into a situation that you can't escape from, and you're going to take even more damage. Right. There are some 100% in this game. You can kill somebody's entire life bar. So this ability to break out of a combo effectively gives you a ton more life.
It's almost like it's almost just like a bonus life in the middle of the round.
I mean, it really is, because that allows you to survive in situations where you would otherwise be dead. It gives you another chance, But at the same time, it comes up in with this meter. And like we've been saying, meter is very important in this game. Enhanced specials can be really important. Breaker is gigantic, especially in certain matchups where people can have 100% setups, 70% setups, that kind of thing. It can be very damaging. So you need to make sure that you maintain your meter until exactly when you need to use it. And oftentimes in this game, you'll see people win or lose in very large part because they either manage their meter well or they did a poor job of it. Right. So if you get 3 full bars here, just
Let's do this.
Practice.
Options, super
full.
So now we have a full meter here.
Right.
If you have a full meter and it starts glowing X like that, everyone has access to. The super bar was always called a super bar because one of the first games that used it was Super Street Fighter 2, and they called it the super meter because you got access to super combos essentially. I'm sorry, it's Super Turbo that got that, right? So most fighting games since then have kept that mechanic in there. So in Mortal Kombat, if I have a full bar, at some point in time, I can activate my X-ray combo. And look at the damage that it's doing to the opponent right now.
It's pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always kind of funky looking like that, like all sorts of bones breaking and ligaments being destroyed. And it's obviously this is Mortal Kombat, and that's a big part of the game.
Yeah.
But it can be important for some characters. The X-ray, which is the super, when you have the full 3 bars. Some games will call it a super, some games will call it an ultra, some games will call it a hyper, or here's an X-ray. And an X-ray, obviously, as you can see, very damaging move. Different people's X-rays do very different things. So
sometimes they have extra properties because, some moves may have what are considered invincibility, like you just can't be hit.
Right.
So, for example, some people have X-rays that'll slide them forward and attack right away. So if Sub-Zero throws that ice projectile, you can just activate your X-ray and go right through it and hit him while he's stuck in the delay.
Right. And other characters have X-rays that are very good to beat somebody who's trying to jump in on you. If somebody's trying to jump in on you, you can just activate your X-ray, and it'll be what's called an anti-air or an anti-jump attack, and it'll work very, very well. Other characters have X-rays that are counter moves. That is to say, moves that when you activate them, when you start your X-ray, if the opponent attacks you, you automatically hit them back with the big damaging X-ray combo. Yeah. So different characters have very different uses for X-rays. You have to use your breaker very differently in different matchups. In certain matchups, you're going to want to use the breaker immediately because you know that a character has very damaging combos but can't really get anything after that. In other matchups, you want to save your breaker for the exact right time because if you don't, the opponent can get one of these big reset situations that we talked about and basically end the round. So as you're watching, you're gonna see very different uses of the meter depending on character, depending on players' preferences. There are all sorts of different things like that, and make sure that you pay close attention to the meter in this game because, like I was saying, you can often see who's going to win or lose a round based in significant part on how they're using their meter. So let's also talk a little bit about the characters in this game. This was a game that had significant patching early on in its lifetime. Like I said, it's about a year and a half old, and for the first maybe 6 months of the game, I mean, it was being patched fairly regularly, and that should be a concept that's not foreign to anybody. The developers put out changes to the characters to rebalance things. If things were too good or too bad, they would try to make it a little bit more even.
I mean, that's the hard thing. The nice thing about StarCraft, obviously there's a lot of potential for imbalance there, but there are 3 races that you got to balance between. In fighting games, you can have upwards to 50 characters sometimes.
Yeah, go to the character select.
Yeah, there can be a ton of characters, and just because of the sheer volume of characters, it's very easy to have bad matchups and such, or a character that turns out to have a technique that they weren't really aware of that turned out to be too powerful. Right.
So whereas in a game like StarCraft, the goal ideally is to make it so that each race has a pretty good chance of beating every other race. It's not really the case in fighting games. It's what you want to go for ideally, but it never works out that way. So instead, what happens is that one character can have a very dominant match against some other character, but get its ass kicked by some other character. So you
Right.
you often have these kind of little rotating circles of this character beats this one, but loses to this one. That one loses to this one, and that one loses to this one, and you go all the way around like this. And that's actually a pretty big deal in Mortal Kombat right now.
Yeah, there's a very strong concept of... So, in most fighting games, when you play two characters and they start, whoever loses is allowed to change characters.
Right, that's a good point.
And so what ends up happening is sometimes you pick a character, like your favorite character is Scorpion, and your opponent just happens to play a character who's a bad matchup for you.
Yeah.
And he just kicks your ass, right? And then after you lose, because it's 2 out of 3 every time you face an opponent, you have the option of changing a character if you lose. Winner has to stay with the character. So there's this concept of calling counter picking, right? So I could go and pick a character that, kicks your character's ass. But of course, if I beat you, then they have one more turn to come back, and then they can counter pick you.
So for a while in this game, people were thinking that smoke was, I'm not a thing in this game. Here, just go smoke. Down, right, yeah. Well, you don't have to select it. It's not a big deal. I just want to kind of introduce people to it. So smoke was thought to be the best character, or really up there for a little while. He's got some 100% setups. He can be very, very damaging. But lately, actually not even lately, it's been a while now, Cabal has been blowing everything up.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, he's been winning almost everything of importance. And a big reason for that is that he doesn't really seem to have any major weaknesses. Smoke can have some problems. He can get rushed down. That is to say, he can... It's difficult for him to deal with an opponent who's playing very offensively, really trying to get in there constantly. It can be difficult for him to get away. It can be difficult for him to keep the opponent out. That's just kind of a weakness that he has. Cabal doesn't really have that weakness, and you're going to see Cabal players... here, just to go back to the character selection, because I just want to show people just in general.
Sure.
Cabal has really strong ability to keep the opponent away from him, if that's what he wants, if that's the matchup.
Right.
He can do a really, really good job of that. But he can also play up close really, really well. He has very damaging setups, damaging combos, and he has the ability to, after a big combo, land the opponent right up next to him in a situation where the opponent has to make very bad guesses, and if they don't guess correctly, then they're going to take a lot more damage again. So he has the ability to stay away or to be up close, and that can be really, really strong. He's a very strong character. You can try to instant air gas blast. Yeah. So obviously we're gonna be terrible at this because we're not NK players, but this is a big thing in this game. It's just dealing with this, and actually it's a good thing that you picked Johnny Cage, because Johnny Cage is a character who gets blown up by this. He has a really tough time dealing with somebody who is at the other side of the screen just throwing these projectiles. And if you're used to seeing, or if you are thinking that there's kind of not that much skill or interest or strategy involved in throwing projectiles, that's not at all the case, actually. Each projectile that you throw is thrown with some intention. It has some purpose behind it. And you're throwing it at a range where you think that you're safe, where you can force the opponent into some bad situation, where you can take some life off. It's done very much intentionally.
And you can see right here immediately how the matchup will change. You saw how Scorpion, I had that move that I could teleport, through the wall.
Right.
So, if Cabal's doing this to Scorpion, I just teleport through and hit him out of the air.
Right.
But Johnny Cage
doesn't really have that option. I mean, he used to have, let's see, what is it? Yeah, this. Yeah, if you EX that, it can be, let's see. Yeah, that. It goes far, and it used to have really strong armor and stuff. But it's not really that great now. So instead, you're just going to see Johnny players just trying to dash up. And at some point, it's going to become very difficult for him.
Right.
But when he gets up there, he's very, very hard to get off. This concept of taking chip damage whenever you're trying to block is huge for Johnny Cage, because whenever he's up close, he's just going to be doing these very, very frustrating attacks. You're going to notice that he's just attacking.
Right.
And the opponent has to make bad guesses between whether he's going high, or that is to say, forcing you to block high, or forcing you to block low, and if you guess wrong, you're going to take damage. Or he can throw you, and you can't block that at all. So he has really, really good setups up close, and when he gets up close to you, he's just going to be really hard to get away from. But so, the reason that I brought up this kind of wheel of characters, right? So Cabal really beats Johnny Cage because he doesn't let Johnny Cage in. Cage also has some issues with some other characters, but if Cage gets in there and he rushes down, then he's really good. And what was I saying about Smoke earlier? That Smoke has problems with characters who get in there and really rush him down and make him deal with them up close. And that's what Cage is. So you got Cabal beating Cage, but Cage beats Smoke. And then Smoke, nobody beats Cabal, people think, but one of the characters who has a better job of it or an easier job of it than most is Smoke. So there's this kind of wheel, and you might see at MLG that really comes into play.
Right.
Here, go back to the character select screen. It's not just those characters, but you're also going to see other characters as well. Katana and Sonya and Jax and Sector and a couple other characters are going to be in there too. And let's talk now about some of the players that you're going to see in Mortal Kombat. So one of the big things to know about Mortal Kombat is that it's a very regionalized game in North America. New York City basically owns everybody in this game. They're really, really good. And they have a lot of the best players right now. And wherever they've been going lately, they've been winning. So it's really tough to deal with that. There's also the Midwest players in Chicago in particular and the surrounding areas. They have a lot of really strong players there. But the West Coast has some strong players too out here in California where we are. So MLG is going to be really about that, about those regions trying to deal with each other and trying to beat each other. Like I said, though, New York City has really been doing the best job. So they have a lot of the best players. They have Crazy Dominican and Crazy Dominican Jr., CD Jr., people are going to call him, Rio and Maxter, and they have a lot of these really, really strong guys that are going to show up and do really, really well. Crazy Dominican and CD Jr. have really helped find out new, what we call technology in fighting games. That is to say, just uses for moves that we didn't think about before, or exploitations of the game engine that we didn't really think about before, and finding particular setups that can deal with the opponent's technology better than before. It's basically just changes in strategy and the games that people are playing in the strategic and tactical sides of the game.
Right.
And they have been really, really good at that. Rio has too. I mean, his Cabal is going to be something that you'll see. And
he's pretty much the pro at the low to the ground air projectile.
Yeah.
And he will be doing that a lot.
He is going to be doing that a lot for sure. You're also going to have to watch out for. I guess it's good we have Katana here. Crazy Dominican probably going to be using Katana. Really, really strong character as well. She has really, really dangerous projectiles from afar that lead into huge damage.
Yeah. She has kind of that same keep away game that Cabal can. She can throw fans all day, and it's really hard to get in on her.
Right. CD Jr. actually uses Jax, so we didn't really talk about Jax that much yet, but Jax is a character that was really slept on early, but got a lot better, and in large part just because of things that people found out about the game and how he works as a character. Not so much because of, a little bit because of patches, but not even so much because of that. It'll be interesting to see what he does with that character. West Coast is going to be depending more on Denzel Terry and his brother Milak, and so that'll be cool to see. The regional rivalries and how that shows up. Like basically, I said, obviously New York City is favored.
It's just like I said. Let's see if West Coast can actually do anything.
Yeah, for sure.
So, do you know if Perfect Legend is coming out to this tournament?
I haven't heard that he's coming.
Yeah.
Maybe. I haven't even heard about it. But
Perfect Legend was the guy who won Evo 2011 last year.
Yeah, but hasn't really been an impact in the game since then. So not really a big deal nowadays in this game. Probably the odds-on favorite is Cabal, because Cabal has been winning everything. When Cabal doesn't win, it's been with Smoke. It's been Smoke winning, so you're gonna watch out for those characters a lot. But also CD Jr. wins, and he uses Jax. So you're gonna see a lot of different characters at the top, and make sure that you watch out for those players.
Yep. All right. So I guess we can probably move on to the next game.
Yeah. So I actually want to do a stream restart so that it'll be easier to find in the archives, where things are. So we're gonna shut down the stream and restart it. We'll be right back, and we're gonna be talking about Soul Calibur 5. And which characters to look out for, what some of the game engine mechanics are, and some of the players and their backstories.
All right, so stick around.